Hello, this is Mahanta Didia. In this portion of the book on liquid formulation, we continue with pre-formulation of emulsion. In this submodule 13.3, we will look at viscosity, its relationship to rheology, and sensory attributes. Readers are requested to review module 1.2 on rheology. Viscosity, rheology, and sensory attributes are related. Let's understand viscosity from pre-formulation viewpoint. Viscosity of a fluid is a measure of resistance to its gradual deformation by shear stress or tensile stress. Viscosity, eta, is a ratio of shearing stress, force per unit area, to the shear strain velocity gradient, delta V divided by X. X is the separation of layers. We know water is not viscous, oil is more viscous, and we can explain that by viscosity numbers. So visually, what does this liquid look like when they are more viscous or less viscous? This will give us sensory perception of viscosity. We'll see several liquids. Water, 1 millipascal. Oil, 10 to 150 millipascal. Glycerin, 1500 millipascal. Shower gel, about 2000 millipascal. This gives you visual impression of what is viscous and the viscosity. Honey, 4000 millipascal. Now we have gone from water, 1 millipascal, to honey, which is 4000 millipascal. You want to get that visual or sensory effect of viscosity. Finally, sugar syrup, 5000 millipascal. Let's look at, on a molecular basis, what is viscosity, viscous force. Viscosity is related to the relative movement of the material. More movement, less viscous. Strong force of attraction, more viscous. Weak forces of attraction, more viscous. Oil, less viscous is water. And you can see that at a molecular level. So in addition to understanding numbers, we need to understand sensory perception. Viscosities are classified in two major groups, Newtonian and non-Newtonian. Newtonian flow, when we apply shear stress or force, shear rate is proportional to it. More shear stress applied, proportionally shear rate will increase. And viscosity of fluid is constant at all shear rate. Non-Newtonian flow has a non-linear relationship between shear stress, that is the force applied, versus shear rate, the velocity divided by x. Pseudoplastic flow, as we increase the shear stress, shear rate initially increases and then it becomes linear. Shear thinning is very common property in many cosmetic, pharmaceutical, and dermatological products. There are products that require force before they start flowing. These are yield pseudoplastic or viscoplastic material. The product will not flow until certain force yield stress is applied, and then it will flow in proportion to the shear stress or similar to pseudoplastic material. Dilatant, that's shear thickening. So how do we measure shear stress and shear rate? We measure using a viscometer that allows us to change the shear rates without resampling. Let's look at the video. It's important to not introduce bubbles in the test medium. has to be adjusted properly. Appropriate reading needs to be taken of the spindle, and you can increase the speed up and down. Correct spindle code is entered, and speed can be adjusted up or down. Once you set the speed, turn it on, and viscosity readings will be measured. In order to change the speed, one does not have to stop the motor. So in same sample, without turning off the motor, we can keep on increasing the shear rate and measure shear stress and viscosity. Thixiotropic flow. Thixiotropic is a time-dependent change in viscosity. It is stable at the rest and fluid when agitated flows, and it returns back to the stable rest. Higher viscosity at rest form increases the stability. Hydrogel, consisting of three-dimensional networks such as sodium CMC, protein peptides, lipids with cross-link structures, provide thixotropicity. Let's look at the video, see what the thixotropic materials look like, and look at how we measure thixotropicity. Using a viscometer, we apply shear rate, increase it, ramp up, and then ramp down, decrease the shear rate on same sample. So material flows when we stir it. It returns back to its original shape once we stop stirring it. When measuring thixotropy, we need to make sure we use the same time interval in ramp up and ramp down. Ramping up, increase the shear rate and measure viscosity. And when we ramp down, if the curve overlaps, then there is no thixotropy. If the curves are different, that is, ramp down curve lags, then we will call it thixotropic material. More thixotropic material, the difference between these two curves is going to be larger. Let's look at the data. So let's look at sodium CMC hydrogel containing PCS class 2 poorly soluble drug. We can increase shear rate and measure shear stress or viscosity. Here are the results. Up curve at 23 degrees and down curve at 23 degrees. You can see thixotropic behavior. Similarly, at 37 degrees, up curve and down curve. Again, we see thixotropic behavior. Rheology and sensory attributes. Rheology is science of deformation and flow of material in response to force. Deformation, strain, flow, strain rate, they indicate distance over which product moves under external force. Rheology is relationship between stress and strain. And we can relate rheology to sensory behavior. And in this case, we would look at spreadability as a key behavior. One of the key quality attributes is spreading. And there are many ways to measure it. It is in draft guidance for EMA submissions. Yield stress is required. Complete flow curve of viscosity versus shear rate is required for many medicinal agents. We can use texture analyzer to measure the force and formulate it, look at which is the best match. There are three components in spreadability: structure, friction, and viscosity. Structure requires yield force to move the material. Viscosity is how well the material moves. Friction is how well the material will adhere to skin. All three components then provide the relationship between rheology and sensory attributes. Initially, material will not flow on shear yield stress. Then it will flow when we apply shear force. This is viscosity. Viscosity and shear rates are a curve. It's not a single point. Physical property, rheology, and sensory attributes. We can now relate to them appearance. Sensory attributes would be pourability, how easy it is to pour, how easy it is to move from the tube, ability of product to be poured or pumped out when force is applied. It can be measured by viscometry and yield stress. Firmness, how firm is the product? Sensory attribute is firmness, the degree to which product is able to hold its shape and structure in presence of force. It can be done through texture analysis, oscillatory and frequency sweeps. Pickup, elasticity and stretchability. It is ability of product to deform or expand, strain by resisting the external force that is stress. That can be done through viscometer, texture analysis also. Spreadability, part of rub out. Force required to cause the flow of the product. Viscometry and yield stress are related to spreadability. Stickiness, ability of product to attain to skin and yielding, quote, sticky skin feel. Texture analysis, we can relate sensory attributes to rheological. Another aspect, especially for pharmaceutical products, is palatability, taste, and color. The oil, drugs, and emulsifiers can have objectionable texture and taste. Palatability of pharmaceutical products, especially in oral medication, is important. Incorporation of excipient to improve taste of drugs, partitioning of it, that results into unacceptable taste. So we add sweeteners, flavors, colorant to the continuous phase and proper selection of emulsifier to minimize incompatibility and instability of emulsion. Cosmetic product, texture, colors, fragrance, all those are important to overcome objectionable texture or odor of oil, drugs, and emulsifiers.